Hi guys, we're the team at Black Voices Cornwall and we are going to talk to you today about Windrush. It is the 75th year of Windrush and we are celebrating it, but do you know what Windrush is? Well, we're going to talk to you about that today. So we're going to introduce ourselves and we're going to first of all tell you what Windrush means to us and then give you some more info.
Hey, I'm Marcus, and as you can tell, this is completely organic. We're just rolling with it, and it will be what it will be. But my name's Marcus. I'm a member of the team here at Black Voices Cornwall, and Windrush to me means the arrival of my family into the UK.
I'm Abby. I'm also part of the team at Black Voices Cornwall. Windrush to me means opportunity, but it's not without its challenges. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the Windrush, so it means a huge amount to me and my family and the opportunities that have been given to us due to moving to Britain.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm also with Black Voices Cornwall, and Windrush means so much to me, but I love to dance and I love the music. So yeah, that's the vibe I'm taking out of Windrush. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Joyty and I'm also I'm a member of the team at Black Voices Cornwall. And Windrush doesn't mean the same thing to me because Windrush is a very important experience and event with the biggest migration of people from the Caribbean into the UK. But my family actually arrived before the Windrush, so I like to look at the history from before that.
Should we delve a little bit now into what actually happened in the Windrush?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, well, this little video will do it better than me, or it might not do it better than you. So let's have a watch at this little video together.
Hello and welcome to History Pod. On the 22nd of June 1948, the MV Empire Windrush arrived at Tilbury Docks in London, carrying 492 West Indian immigrants. The ship, which was originally known as MV Monte Rosa, was a German cruise ship that had been used as a troop transporter during the Second World War. She was seized by Britain at the end of the conflict, when she was renamed. In 1948, the British government passed the Nationality Act, which gave British citizenship to people who lived in the Commonwealth countries and allowed them the right to settle in Britain. Britain desperately needed workers in the aftermath of the Second World War, so Commonwealth citizens were encouraged to immigrate and to help to rebuild the mother country. A series of adverts in and around Jamaica advertised tickets for the journey on board Empire Windrush for £28, which equates to around £600 sterling today. Many of the passengers who bought this first wave of tickets had been members of the Royal Air Force during the war. A number of them sought to rejoin the armed forces, while others undertook the voyage to see what opportunities Britain would present. Although the press generally greeted them warmly as sons of empire, some members of Parliament opposed the arrival of the immigrants. Their presence was needed to staff a number of industries, however, but although Britain was short of workers, there was also a shortage of housing. This led to the new arrivals being temporarily housed in the deep-level air raid shelter in South Clapham, approximately 2 miles away from Brixton town centre, while they searched for accommodation. The majority permanently settled in Britain, but the Afro-Caribbean community experienced significant prejudice, intolerance and racism in subsequent years.
What I really want to talk about is the narrative of people coming here for a better life and people coming over to see what opportunities there were. And I think it's a really interesting way to phrase it, because actually what happened was the UK needed people. We needed help in this country, and really highly skilled people were encouraged to come over here, were promised better homes, were promised better education systems, were promised a really great life. But actually, that's not what they received when they got here. But that idea that, like, oh, you know, people are coming because Britain's better and it's a better life. They were really skilled people.
Yeah.
They had a lot, and you know, they were
Yeah.
in the Air Force. They fought for this country, and then they came back to try and fight for this country again. That's not the UK helping people from the Caribbean. That's people from the Caribbean helping the UK. But that's not how it's usually described to us, and that's not what the newspapers said at the time.
Yeah, the thing that really two things that struck me, because when I've seen those adverts where it says all £28, you know, I'm thinking of £28, that's nothing. But the context of £600, there's a real sacrifice, isn't it, that people made to come and help rebuild Britain. The other thing that struck out for me was when they arrived, you know, they'd have that anticipation, wouldn't they? And what happened? There was no one to greet them. They were stuck actually out at dock or whatever. And when they did come in, they were greeted with, "Oh, there's so many of you, we don't know what to do with you, there's no housing." So they were actually put in an air raid bunker. That's really stuck out for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like you think you're going to the motherland, and then you're stuck in an air raid. Some of them were stuck in there for over 2 weeks in that air raid, and longer.
I think for me, it's that, like, and there's a few things that have just come to me. It's that over-promise and under-deliver
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yes, you can fight for a country. Yes, you can be a nurse, but we're still not going to give you very much for it. But thanks for your service is kind of how it is, isn't it?
It's like-
Within the government, the expectation, I think, was like, okay, so we've got this workforce here to help us, but I don't think the anticipation that people would aim to reside and stay. I think that the thought was that people would come over with a Windrush, help rebuild the country, and then they'd go back to their own island and, you know, job done. But obviously, you know.
But if you built it, you have a right to it, surely. Like any of us would expect to have. Do you know what I mean? You build your house; it's your house to live in. So if these people are rebuilding society, it's their society to live in, and it isn't a question anymore about, well, you need to assimilate with our society. No, they built that society. Everything that you're using, all that infrastructure, was made by the people you're now telling that they don't fit in with, which is just crazy.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, or that a lot of people aren't taught, that Black people and people of colour had inputted so much value into society, and like you were saying earlier, it's just not taught, it's not recognised. And I think that comes down to the lack of value a lot of the systems in Britain today don't find in people of colour, even though, because the adverts were, our streets are paved with gold, so come over and help us, and then the complete opposite. And
streets are paved with chewing gum, pigeon poo, seagull foot.
Or the streets are paved with gold, which we actually took from West Africa.
You can't touch.
There have been moments where I feel a little bit guilty and a little bit shameful that I actually don't know my own history. I didn't even know Windrush was a thing in probably until my mid-30s. That's the reality. And it wasn't until that point that I do my own family digging and research and go, actually, do you know what, this directly affects me. You know, my grandparents are Windrush, and then suddenly things start falling into place, and you wonder why for so long. And even today, there are still young people growing up in Britain, particularly in rural areas, that don't have a sense of belonging. It's because they're not being taught their history, and it just takes me back to and recognizing that there is no way I could even begin to understand or imagine, like, how my granddad felt. Sitting on that boat waiting to get off, and the impact that had, coming from an absolute place of safety that is home into somewhere new, to be confronted with some of the crap that they had to see plastered on walls, spoken by politicians, like guest houses, being stuck in the basement of a subway for you know, because they weren't ready. And I was just thinking, like, lots of those, they were predominantly young men and some women. But the fact that many of those young men had families back at home that they were waiting to bring over, you've just literally sacrificed your world at home to go and start a new life. You're confronted with that. The decision you must have to go through to say, actually, do I want to bring my family into this space? Because I can't afford to go back now. I haven't got 600 quid for a return ticket. I'm going to have to stay and work. But there is no work, there is no accommodation. So I think the trauma that must have instilled, not just for the people that arrived in Britain from that vessel, off that vessel, but just trying to imagine the communication home, having to write to your wife or your partner or your mum or your dad saying, this is what I've experienced, and then having to fundamentally, I guess, choose between working hard enough to go back home because it's too much, or taking the chance and bringing your family into that unsafe environment. If I don't know what I would, genuinely don't know what I would do if I was in that position today.
Yeah.
I'd run. I'd swim.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, go back to the sunshine. It's raining. I'm
Yeah,
swimming.
like, literally.
Yeah, the rain, the discrimination,
And again, we're getting the factual information, but where's the sense of emotion? Where's the sense of humanity that we're missing from this entire Windrush story?
Yeah.
You can't read that in the textbook. You can't gauge that, and unless you're in a fortunate position to have had a conversation with someone that was in that experience. Unfortunately for me, I can't because they're no longer with us. But to be able to have had that moment, to just like get a tiny glimpse into what it actually felt like.
And to acknowledge the bravery and the risk and the journey, and for them to feel heard about it, because part of the situation is people were feeling the way they were feeling, but no one was asking anyone how, that wasn't in the newspapers. People didn't have a voice. People couldn't go on TV and talk about it. So we only get the story from the UK side, really. We don't get the story of Windrush from the Caribbean side, unless, as you said, we're lucky enough, God rest their souls, to speak to the people who, we're running out of time to talk to.
Yeah. Your dad's his story. Should we have a listen?
Yeah, please do.
So, Dad, did you know it's the 75th anniversary of the Windrush? How amazing is that?
That's excellent, isn't it?
It
75 years.
Yeah,
Gosh,
definitely.
wow.
So, what was life like living in Jamaica?
That's how you recall, remember back. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
The weather was great. A nice sunny day today.
Yeah.
But temperature wise was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was excellent. And where I lived, I grew up with my gran. Where I lived, there was a couple of acres, so we had plenty of fruits, mangoes, guinea, star apples. So the exotic fruit was there. Just describing some of them. So it was really wonderful being there.
Yeah, definitely. Good. So, when did your family come over?
My mum came over in 1960, the year I was born. So I didn't know them when I came to the UK. I was there for 12 years. So I didn't know them at all. So I wouldn't say it was a shock, but because I didn't know them from birth. So it was just nice just to finally meet them and then embrace them as a family. When I was there, it was four of us, my sister, 3 sisters, and just me. So we was born in Jamaica. Yeah. And 2 of my sister came over first. Then me and my other sister came over last, really. So that was good.
So, what year and how old were you when you came over to the UK?
I came out. I was 12, and came over in 1972. Also, while I came over, there was 3 other brothers that I didn't know before.
Okay.
Was younger than me, but that was nice to meet them finally, because my mum was corresponding with my gran, because there was quite a few times she was trying to, well, my 2 sisters went, and then for me to come over, my other sister, I'm not sure if it was financial reason why the first time we couldn't go there. We was all packed, ready to go, but then it didn't work out. And the second time we came, which worked out. So that's all it was. So it was wonderful.
Yeah.
What's life like in Britain now then?
Well, came in over in 1972. I recognised the temperature change because it was much warmer, and I recognised because it was September, end of August coming into September. That was the period I came over, so I recognised it was different in temperature. So I would just prepare myself with a coat, jumper, which was new to me, but I just embraced it because I was living with my family. You know, it's not with my grand, but actually with my real family. So it was good. So just embrace it as something new and exciting, really. So I just took it just took it. Because I was 12, I was still young, growing. So I just took it as, normal, really. Yeah. So.
And now, thanks to the Windrush, the Hutchinson clan is all over the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, being here in Cornwall is wonderful because I grew up in Newport, and then got some sisters in London, and then got you guys down here in Cornwall. So it's been wonderful. I can't remember, lost count with how many grandchildren my mum has. So that was, it's been wonderful. The Hutchins family just growing and expanding. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah, the Windrush has been a success for us.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So being here in the UK has been good.
I absolutely love your dad. He's got like the
It's
loveliest.
super cute.
He's got like the loveliest, sunniest disposition. I wanted to like dive through the screen and just hug him and be like, "Oh my God, be my dad too. You're lush." He's so lovely. It was so nice.
Yeah, super cute.
So he seemed to have quite a positive experience or positive recollections around, his Windrush experience, which is also really important to share because everyone's an individual and will have their own story. How did it surprise you what he said, or were you kind of, well, I suppose you know your dad quite well, don't you? But yeah.
I mean, nothing phases that man. He's very laid back and he's very chilled. I've spoken to him in the past about the types of racism that he's experienced, and he doesn't even recognise them as racism, which is really funny because if that happened to me, I would be so broken. It's really quite interesting to see the different perspectives. I mean, Marcus, you said an important word earlier, which was trauma. And I think that it's important not to forget that a lot of people that came over in the Windrush have experienced so much trauma. So I think my dad's experience with it being not so traumatic for him is probably in the minority in terms of the whole rounded approach of what people's experiences were from the Windrush.
What was it, 12 years before he came over and was reunited with mum? Like, I don't care what anyone says, like, there's got to be some trauma around that in terms of detachment, and it's just fascinating that consciously or unconsciously your dad has been able to put that and for it seemingly not to get to him, not to have hindered or stifled his ability to like survive and thrive and grow in Britain.
Well, he said his parents came over in the year that he was born. I mean, wow.
There are a lot of stories from families in the West Indies where children were left with uncles and aunts or with grandmothers while parents went over. And I'm not sure if he does know, but it'd be interesting to find out, like you said about when is it safe to do that, when was I ready to do that, why it took 12 years, because I'm sure it's not because his mum didn't desperately miss him. It would have been because it's not the right time, or they didn't feel safe, or they didn't have the housing, and that's an interesting story in itself, the way that the Windrush affected families back home and potentially the lack of resources available for when people arrived meant that families took longer to be reunited with each other, which is something I, again, don't know anything about.
Well, so for me, in terms of the conversations that I've had with my family around Windrush, is that really similar to what we've just mentioned, is that my granddad came over and the plan was that for my gran and the then 3 children, one of which was my dad, to come over like pretty imminently, like we were talking within weeks. I think the plan was for them to come on over. But obviously we know the facts, they arrived here and there was nothing for them. So there must have been, and I did go into the detail of that, or I'm not aware of the information, but there must have been some pretty swift correspondence from from Grampy back to my nan, in terms of actually not yet. And I think it was 2 years before my gran came over, but only brought 2 of my dad and my auntie, leaving 1 child behind. The eldest was left behind with my great gran, but he never came back. He never came to Britain until I think he must have been in his 20s, and it completely ruined their relationship. There was no relationship made after that between my uncle Michael and my nan, because I think obviously there's too much damage had been done. You get into your 20s, the only thing you're going to feel, I think, is abandonment. Yeah. Knowing that actually since your mum has gone to Britain, the 2 of the children were taken with her, and she's had another child while there, but still not brought me over. So I think and these are the, I hate to use the word nuances, especially after yesterday, but these are the little nuggets that have a huge impact on our attachment and understanding of what the Windrush is, what it was, and what it's done, and what it continues to do. Because it's not just something that happened, it's a massive part of history that has had a significant impact on so many people that are either still living here in Britain or lived in Britain and have moved back.
And we're looking forward, aren't we, to doing a road trip to Notting Hill.
Yeah,
Notting Hill Carnival. Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. My dad would never forgive me if I didn't go.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to with Notting Hill? Because I know, like, we'll learn about it, we'll share a little bit about Notting Hill with you, what it means, you know?
Okay, the music and the dancing. It's incredible. The colours, the costumes, the music, the food. The jerk chicken for days, the rum punch. But because it's a huge celebration of what it means to be a person of colour, what it means to be black, of the Caribbean culture. It's just an out and out 100% beautiful celebration that everybody takes part in it, everybody celebrate together. Yeah. And I get to see my family, which is really, really nice as well. Hang out with the Rastafarians, so I'm all happy.
I think it's also the element of just bringing the community together and also inviting other people into our community, and it's like just that whole experience of a carnival, whether you're passing through or you're right in the middle of the mosh pits, you can experience so much. And it's, I think, just being infused with culture, like right down in your soul, it's such a good feeling to have, and I'm just so excited to just see lots of diversity in comparison to Cornwall as well.
The Notting Hill Carnival is an annual event on August Bank Holiday. The 2-day celebration has happened in London since 1966. It started after a series of racist attacks in August of 1958. White nationalists caused riots in Notting Hill. They were angry about Caribbean immigration to Notting Hill after World War II. But then 2 activists brought unity to Notting Hill: Claudia Jones and Ruan Laslet. Claudia Jones founded the first black newspaper and used her network to bring victims of racism together. She organised an indoor event to celebrate Caribbean culture and show that you can protest racism by celebrating black culture. The event happened for 6 years until Claudia Jones sadly passed away. Ruan Laslet was an activist and community leader. She had a vision of an outdoor multicultural community celebration. That was a safe place for Caribbean people to be. In 1966, the first outdoor festival took place in Notting Hill. over 1,000 people took part in the street parade. Today, it is Europe's biggest street festival, with over 50,000 performers and up to 2 million attendees. Thanks to Rowan and Claudia's vision, the whole community is safer and happier, where everyone is welcome.
But you know, we have a little bit of pan work and the vibe in Cornwall, don't we?
We do. And it's just something before we move on to the next little clip, actually, just something that's just come to me is that obviously with Notting Hill and how it came about, it came out of a place of adversity and riot and pain. And I'm just thinking about our organisation, and our celebration of culture and where that came from. So maybe there's a thing going actually that. And it's so much about your general ethos is that actually it's no longer about recognising and embracing and managing the pain and the trauma that comes with Black history. It's about actually how do we change that and flip it so it becomes a celebration of Black history.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Leroy Clark. I play the acoustic drum kit and orchestrate the pieces for Real Steel.
Do you have any connections to the Caribbean?
My connections to the Caribbean will be from my grandparents. So on one side of my family is from Jamaica and on the other side is from Barbados.
Why do you play the steel pan and what impact do you think it has on others?
That's a good question. Basically, I've been in it since birth, to be honest, through my granddad. Then that was obviously filtered through to my dad and then on to myself and then my other siblings, so as a family we kind of all play. I find generally quite positive vibes that it brings to audiences when we're playing.
Can I ask why you think sharing about Windrush is important?
With Windrush, as I understand, there's positives and negatives with it. Obviously, some of the positives is when people came over from the Caribbean islands to help with work services like the NHS and transport and other various things like that. But then on the negative side of it, up till recently, where I believe where people's papers were lost when they came into the country, so they kind of didn't have an existence. But going forward would be to work positively together to obviously eradicate any issues that people had or are still having.
Do you have a positive message to share with the students that are watching today?
Yeah, my positive message would be basically to all live happy as one.
So what I've taken and learned from that is, yes, the UK was positively impacted by Windrush because when the going gets tough, people of colour know how to throw a party, make it all better. Basically, that's not a good bit of cultural infusion. I don't know what is. Don't worry, guys, we've got this covered.
We got it covered.
We've got this covered.
I think there's a massive element of resilience within that, and that even just going back to slavery times and the fact that the three of us wouldn't be here today if our ancestors did not fight for their lives and for their right to live.
And that they weren't standing in fields singing and dancing and celebrating, even in the hardest. And that's quite a hard hitting punch, actually.
Come from
That
strong
even in the darkest hours of Black history, people of colour, people that were enslaved, still found time to celebrate, to embrace life,
and to keep that culture alive. You know, the fight to keep culture alive, and it links back again to education around Black history. You know, we have to keep our history alive. We have to fight tooth and nail to get every kind of recognition. We still don't learn about half of the people that have made great impressions on this country because of the colour of their skin. But we continue to push for that. We continue to keep it alive and to hold it close to our hearts and to celebrate it, because we're not going anywhere, because we know the value of it and we know how beautiful it is and how powerful it is, and the fact that it's been around forever. You know, people of colour have been around since the dawn of man and you know, built pyramids and did some really cool stuff, and we've got to keep that alive. And yeah. The Windrush generation gave Britain lots of great things. Here's our top 5 contributions from our Caribbean patriots. The NHS was a new service in 1948. People worked as nurses, doctors, porters, carers, and more to build and run it for everyone. In fact, a quarter of our NH staff is of Caribbean descent to this day. Imagine if there weren't any buses, or trains, or post, or homes, or food in the shops. The Windrush generation helped to run our transport, rebuilt our homes, produced our food. They helped Britain to become a prosperous country again. Music. The arrival of the Empire Windrush had a huge impact on British music, from calypso, blues, Latin, jazz and gospel. And nowadays, reggae, drum and bass, grime and dubstep. In fact, many of today's artists are the children of the Windrush generation. Lots of great things we love today arrived with the Windrush generation. New fashions, exciting food, cultural literature, diverse arts, modern language, and sports heroes. In fact, modern British culture as we know it. Civil rights. Activists and politicians have helped to make our communities more inclusive. Prosperity, culture, community. Thank you to our Caribbean patriots.
But I kind of think that, you know, if we hadn't have had the Windrush generation, then Britain might have been maybe a boring place to live.
Well, like we say, we wouldn't have had Carnival at the start.
Yeah, it'd be a very different place, I think.
Yeah, but we have a lot to thank the Windrush generation for, and it's a really exciting prospect that people like us, you know, students who are at school now, everybody has an opportunity to start to celebrate the input of people, to start to celebrate those families and those people that came to rebuild the country and make Britain better. Now's our chance to thank you, Windrush generation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, round of applause.
But I think the leaving thing for me is that don't look at Windrush as a part of history, because it's still so present and so current, and there is still so much impact as a direct result. We are still here in different shapes and forms and sizes, but this is the legacy, I guess. So don't just look at Windrush as something that happened before we were born, because it still has an impact today.